Recall a person who evokes an irrational, almost visceral repulsion in you. Not just dislike, but a deep, unfair contempt. Perhaps it's someone who brazenly takes up too much space in public, or someone who, with defiant self-assurance, interrupts you without listening. Or maybe it's a figure from the news feed whose ostentatious, unwarranted audacity makes you clench your teeth. Something in their shameless directness, their unbridled ambition, their overt self-absorption, their undisguised craving for attention, it triggers not just irritation, but a feeling of deep, almost personal offense. You look at them and think, how dare they? How do they have the nerve to be like that? And allow me to say something that might sound provocative. This person is not just a stranger. They are your mirror. And not just a mirror, but a portal. Every time you feel that burning, almost venomous sting of irritation, you are actually looking at a part of yourself. A part that you, long ago, perhaps even in childhood, decided to banish. An inner exile you locked away in the dungeon of your subconscious because the world around you convinced you can't be like that. It's shameful. It's dangerous. It's wrong. The irony is that precisely within this seemingly repulsive projection lies not only the key to understanding your own shadow, but also the path to your wholeness, to your untapped power. Imagine that behind this wall of rejection lies something that can free you, make you more complete, more potent. But why does this mechanism work so flawlessly, with such ruthless precision, that someone else's behavior can throw us off balance like a lightning strike? To understand this, we need to return to the origins, to the site of the very first crime against your own nature. We spoke of a mirror reflecting something we flee from, and of the first crime against one's own nature. But when was this crime committed? When did your soul, still untainted by falsehood, first encounter the judgment passed by the outside world? Close your eyes and let memory, like an ancient river current, carry you to those shores where the first prohibitions were formed. It wasn't necessarily one dramatic, thunderous moment. More often it was a series of subtle, yet no less profound shocks. A chain of glances, inflections, disapproving sighs that slowly but surely carved new, distorted laws of existence onto the tablets of your subconscious. Recall that echo when your natural, unbridled urge for prominence, your innate desire to claim your place, your right to assert yourself, to be noticed, was labeled immodest, selfish, or inappropriate. When you're healthy, primal aggression, that intrinsic force that allows you to defend your boundaries, assert yourself, break through obstacles, was branded as anger, rudeness, or bad manners. When your drive for ambition, for great goals, for taking a rightful place in the sun, for being more than just background, was ridiculed as boasting, arrogance, or empty vanity. And think of those moments when your sincerity, your vulnerability, your right to make mistakes, to be spontaneous, to openly express your feelings was met not with acceptance, but with cold condemnation, shame, or even punishment. Don't cry. You're a boy. Be strong. What nonsense are you talking? Good girls don't act like that. You've ruined everything again. Why can't you be like everyone else? These words, these glances, these unspoken expectations, like icy arrows, pierced your inner child. They taught you that being yourself meant being wrong, being rejected, being dangerous. That your authenticity was a threat to your safety and belonging. And then in response to this unspoken yet pervasive judgment, you made the only decision possible for survival: to be loved, to be accepted, to avoid the pain of rejection and loneliness. You began to cut off. You amputated parts of yourself that were too loud, too bold, too vulnerable, too alive, Too real. You exiled them from the inner tribe of your personality, sending them to the dungeon of the subconscious, into a deep well of oblivion. You convinced yourself that these qualities, your strength, your true nature, were actually bad, shameful, or dangerous. You built high walls around them, hoping they would never break free, never threaten your fragile place in the world, never disrupt the illusion of your goodness in the eyes of others. This was the first great exile, an act of self-amputation performed not with a scalpel, but with fear, shame, and the yearning for belonging. You turned away from a part of your own soul, deeming it unworthy of daylight, unworthy of existence. And each of these exiled parts, every ambition that found no outlet, every tear that remained unshed, every flicker of anger that went unrecognized and unexpressed, every desire that was suppressed, transformed into an invisible but powerful charge of energy. Energy that didn't disappear, but merely awaited its moment to assert itself. It waits for an opportunity to manifest, often in the most unexpected and painful ways, through those who irritate and unbalance us so intensely. This energy is like an unpaid bill that the universe will sooner or later present. We have already touched upon how our internal rejection of certain traits forms an invisible yet powerful shadow, transforming into an elusive but persistent presence in our psyche. This mechanism, the projection of the shadow, is not merely a psychological curiosity or a whimsical game of consciousness. It is a cornerstone of human existence, a universal law of the psyche, and in essence, the core of the philosophy we are exploring here, revealing its profound, almost mystical layers. Imagine that within us exists a kind of primal tribe, a community of all our potentials, instincts, and qualities, from the brightest to those we find unacceptable. When we reject a part of ourselves, be it a healthy desire for prominence, which was branded as selfishness, sincerity, which seemed inappropriate to the world, or vulnerability, which we quickly hid, fearing pain, we do not destroy it. We merely perform an act of internal exile. This part becomes our own inner exile, deprived of voice and the right to exist in the conscious world, but not deprived of its inherent living force. It goes underground, into the shadow, but continues to live, to pulsate, to await its moment. And this force does not disappear without a trace. It accumulates like the energy of an unpaid bill that we stubbornly refuse to acknowledge. The debt we try to ignore grows, gaining ever greater gravity, and sooner or later will demand its collection. It is then that the mechanism of projection comes into play. We begin to see these repressed, exiled qualities in other people, and they evoke an irrational, almost uncontrollable irritation, deep aversion, and sometimes even burning hatred within us. This is not just a coincidence, not a random whim of perception, but a precise hit on a pain point, activating the energy of our own exile, who, through another's face, finally finds a voice. Recall the ancient Greek Erinyes, or Furies, goddesses of vengeance who pursued criminals. They were not merely external entities, but in a deeper mythopoetic sense, symbolized the relentless retribution and internal nightmare that overtakes a person attempting to suppress guilt, deny responsibility, or escape the consequences of their actions. The Erinyes are the embodiment of what was rejected, repressed from consciousness, but did not disappear. Instead, it returned to claim its due, often through external circumstances, through the faces of strangers, through those very figures who evoke our most acute aversion. They are a metaphor for that very energy of the unpaid bill that pursues us from the depths of our own shadow, reminding us of forgotten vows and unaccepted parts of ourselves. This universal law that what is repressed always returns, striving for integration, manifests in an infinite variety of forms, coloring our perception of the world and people. It forces us to confront ourselves in the most unexpected reflections. And among these forms are those that particularly sharply resonate with our inner exiles, embodying precisely those qualities that we so diligently hide from ourselves, unwilling to acknowledge them as part of our true nature. If irrational rejection is merely a reflection of our own repressed facets, then what is the face of these specters that haunt us from others' eyes? What traits in other people evoke not just dislike, but a deep, almost physical revulsion, as if someone is pulling the strings of invisible puppets within us? In the gallery of human types that inhabit our world, there are figures capable of evoking in us not just aversion, but deep, almost physical revulsion, burning contempt, or irrational irritation. They are not merely irritants, but living mirrors in which the contours of our inner exiles appear all too clearly. Think of those who brazenly reap the fruits of others' labor or unashamedly appropriate others' ideas. Of those who persistently, almost maniacally, display their perceived or real achievements, demanding universal admiration. Their self-admiration, their insatiable thirst for recognition, their unceremonious ability to push forward regardless of conventions, are often perceived by us as something repulsive, bordering on vulgarity. In them we see an abyss of selfishness, but in reality it's our own suppressed ambition, a natural drive for primacy, driven into a dark corner. Or perhaps you are deeply outraged by someone who demonstratively avoids responsibility, who lives solely for fleeting pleasures, who disregards accepted norms as if an invisible shield protects them from consequences. Their carefree attitude, their hedonism, their refusal to follow rules may seem to us like a manifestation of weakness, irresponsibility, or even parasitism. In their freedom from obligations, we feel our own unfreedom, our secret desire to shed the burden of duty and surrender to the flow of life. And what about those who are not afraid to conflict, who are blunt to the point of rudeness, who are ready to push through, asserting their position, even if it means disrupting harmony? Their assertiveness, their frankness, their aggressive energy can evoke in us an uncontrollable desire to turn away, to fall silent, to disappear. They are the embodiment of our own exiled aggression, our capacity for healthy self-assertion, which was forbidden and imprisoned in the dungeon of the subconscious. These figures, these demons of our perception, are not merely unpleasant people. They are living embodiments of those qualities that we once, in fear of being rejected or judged, locked away in the furthest corners of our own soul. They are our inner exiles, given voice and flesh in another's guise. Imagine Lydia. Lydia had always been a modest, hard-working, and diligent person. She meticulously performed her work, often staying late, perfecting projects. Her reports were flawless, her ideas profound, but Lydia never knew how to sell herself. She believed that quality spoke for itself, and excessive self-praise was for upstarts and narcissists. And then Mark arrived in her department. Mark was the complete opposite. He didn't always finish tasks. His reports often contained minor inaccuracies, but he was a virtuoso at presenting his ideas, could speak brilliantly about his achievements, even if exaggerated. He easily connected with management. His jokes were always well placed, and he was always the center of attention. Every time Mark walked into the office, smiling his wide, confident smile, Lydia was overcome by a wave of irrational, burning revulsion. She could barely hide her contempt. This upstart, this windbag, she thought, how dare he act like that? Why do they listen to him when he's so superficial? Her hatred for Mark was so strong that it poisoned every workday. But what was truly causing this storm? Not so much Mark as his freedom, the freedom to be seen, the freedom to assert himself, the freedom not to fear judgment for his vibrancy. These were the very qualities: healthy ambition, the right to self-presentation, the ability to assert one's interests, that Lydia had once exiled from herself, suppressing them under the weight of beliefs about modesty and humility. Mark was a living reminder of her own exile, that part of her that craved recognition and would have known how to get it if only she had allowed it. Thus, every demon that evokes such strong rejection in us serves not merely as a source of pain or irritation. It is an unwitting guide to that strength, that right, that part of ourselves that was once rejected. And in this distorted mirror, in this shadow, not only our fear, but also our unrevealed potential is reflected. We have spoken of those strange, sometimes burning reflections that evoke irrational rejection in us, of those figures who are merely mirrors reflecting what has been exiled from ourselves. But what if these frightening images are not a curse, but a distorted map leading to treasures? The true nature of the shadow lies not in its malevolence, but in its suppressed power. Every demon that causes inner protest in us is actually a twisted messenger carrying within it a seed of value. Recall someone who, in your opinion, brazenly claims others' laurels, who ostentatiously revels in their own importance, or whose aggressive directness seems excessive to you. Behind these external manifestations, which are so irritating, lie powerful yet distorted forces. For example, behind the seeming audacity in claiming others' merits often lies nothing other than healthy, natural ambition, the ability to assert oneself, to defend one's achievements, and the right to deserved recognition. Perhaps in childhood, this inner strength of yours was labeled vanity or egoism, and you, obeying external condemnation, exiled it deep within yourself, making it your inner exile. Someone who you feel is excessively self-absorbed may actually possess an unshakable self-worth, the right to be seen, to be oneself without seeking external approval. Did you forbid yourself this right, fearing to appear arrogant or out of touch? And if someone's aggressive directness repels you, perhaps it's merely a clumsy way of expressing inner honesty, the ability to set boundaries, to say no without apology, to protect your space. You once decided that being direct meant being rude, and now your own healthy assertiveness languishes in captivity. This is precisely the key question that the shadow whispers to us through the images of others. What valuable capacity, what inherent right did you once forbid yourself? What part of yourself did you declare an inner exile simply because its manifestation in childhood or youth was condemned, labeled bad, indecent, dangerous. Every vice that we so fiercely reject in others is merely a distorted projection of our own powerful but unclaimed resource. Imagine that these repressed traits are not rot, but gold, covered with a layer of the dirt of social labels and personal traumas. Our task is not to destroy them, but to cleanse them, to wash ambition clean of greed, self-assertion of arrogance, directness of rudeness. This is an alchemical process, the transformation of lead into precious metal, the reclaiming of wholeness, the acquisition of an inner resource that was sealed behind 7 seals of fear and shame. Each such reclaimed part is not just healing, it is the acquisition of new strength, a new tool for life, an expansion of the boundaries of one's self. But as long as we refuse to see this gold, as long as we continue to fear being like those who evoke rejection in us, we are doomed to internal conflict. This fear, this unwillingness to accept our own power often pushes us onto a path that seems safe, but in reality only sabotages our true calling, our right to full self-realization. We spoke of the shadow of those invisible exiles that dwell in the hidden corners of our psyche and how their presence manifests in irrational aversion to others' traits. But what happens when these rejected parts of the personality are not just projected onto others, but begin to actively orchestrate our lives from behind the scenes, determining our steps and decisions? The answer is simple and harsh. They become saboteurs, tirelessly sabotaging our path to wholeness and self-realization. Imagine an artist whose soul yearns for bold, provocative forms, but in childhood was taught that true art should only be classical and refined. Every manifestation of audacity, experimentation, rebellion was branded as bad taste or posturing. This fear of being like those very upstarts and provocateurs we spoke of earlier, those demons from our inner gallery of the unacceptable, forces him to reject his own inner need for innovation. He continues to paint landscapes and still lifes, technically impeccable, but devoid of spark, of soul. His works find no resonance. He feels empty, for every oil paint on the canvas is not an expression of his true self, but merely a skillful mask, hiding an artist who is afraid to be himself. His path is sabotaged not by external circumstances, but by an internal censor, afraid of resembling someone he despises. Isn't this a true tragedy of self-denial? Or take a person whose inner strength and capacity for leadership were suppressed. Perhaps in youth, his initiative was ridiculed, and attempts to take responsibility were met with criticism for overconfidence or audacity. Now, when doors open to new opportunities requiring decisiveness and the ability to lead, he retreats. The fear of being like that tyrannical boss or like that domineering woman whose behavior evokes a burning rejection in him paralyzes him. He chooses the path of least resistance, remaining in the shadows, missing chances for growth, for realizing his true potential. This is not cowardice in the usual sense, but a deeply ingrained fear of becoming what he himself considers unworthy. Perhaps at this moment, a natural objection arises in your mind, but I really don't want to be like that. I don't want to be brazen, pushy, or aggressive. And this is an absolutely correct, healthy aspiration. The point is not to become the embodiment of those qualities that evoke rejection in their distorted form. The task is to realize what you hate in others is often merely a distorted reflection of your own suppressed, yet vitally important resources. A brazen person can be a mirror of your suppressed ability for self-presentation. A pushy person of your inability to assert your boundaries, and an aggressive person of your unexpressed but necessary for self-defense strength. When you refuse to acknowledge these aspects within yourself, you do not destroy them. You merely drive them deeper, allowing them to act from underground, manifesting in unconscious decisions that lead to self-sabotage. You deprive yourself of access to a whole spectrum of human experience, to tools that could help you in life. Your fear of being like the demon from chapter 4 does not make you pure. It makes you incomplete, deprives you of strength, traps you in others' expectations or childhood traumas. Wholeness is not achieved by amputation, but only by integration. It is in this act of recognition and then transformation of lead into gold that the path to genuine self-realization lies. Sometimes, however, the mirror reflects not only what causes rejection, but also what we revere and envy, unwittingly depriving ourselves of our own treasures. However, the labyrinth of the psyche holds not only the echo of our rejections and hidden aversions. If the shadow, which we discussed earlier, is the repository of all that has been repressed due to shame, fear, or condemnation, then there exists its paradoxical counterpart, the so-called golden shadow. This is the part of our soul that we, sometimes unconsciously, repress not through rejection, but through deification, through blind, almost reverent admiration. Imagine standing before a magnificent painting created by a renowned master. You are struck by its depth, the boldness of the brushstrokes, the radiance of the colors, and in this admiration, you are so deeply convinced that such grandeur belongs exclusively to him that the very thought of your own ability to create something equally grand does not even occur to you. You unwittingly surrender your own potential, your unrevealed talents, onto the altar of another's skill. This is not hatred, not aversion, but adoration, which paradoxically deprives you of your own light. When we see qualities in another person that seem impossibly beautiful to us, be it charisma, unyielding will, boundless creativity, rare empathy, or witty insight, we tend to place that person on a pedestal. We imbue them with an aura of exclusivity, unconsciously crowning them with gifts that actually lie dormant within ourselves. And at that moment, in an act of sincere but naive admiration, we commit the subtlest act of self-sabotage. We alienate these qualities from ourselves, projecting them outward, making them part of someone else's identity, not our own. It's as if you owned countless treasures, but upon seeing the glitter of someone else's jewels, decided that your own were merely dull stones and hid them away, forgetting their true value. These golden qualities become part of your inner exile in a positive sense. They are not rejected as bad, but repressed as unattainable for you, as something that belongs to someone else. And so you stand, mesmerized by another's radiance, unaware that the key to your own treasure chest has always been with you. Look closely at those who evoke your sincere, almost reverent admiration. Who are these beacons that illuminate your path or seem unattainable? And which of your own unrevealed gifts have you perhaps unconsciously given to them, making them part of your inner exile in the brightest yet no less insidious sense. Understanding this duality of the shadow, its dark and its golden side, is the first step towards reclaiming wholeness, towards gathering the scattered fragments of your own greatness. For only when we dare to face both sides of this mirror can we truly begin to put ourselves back together. We have spoken of the shadows dancing on the walls of our perceptual cave, of mirrors reflecting not others' faces, but distorted fragments of ourselves. But understanding is only the first step on the path to liberation. True alchemy begins where knowledge transforms into action, where awareness becomes a tool for reclaiming lost wholeness. It is time to stop being merely an observer of the drama played out by inner exiles on the stage of the external world. The time has come to become the director and then the main actor. The philosophy I propose is simple yet profound. Every rejected fragment of yourself, whether it evokes burning aversion or unbearable admiration, contains within it the seed of your true undistorted strength. Imagine that you are not just the sum of socially accepted qualities, but a vast landscape with fertile valleys and wild, unexplored mountains. Until now, you have built your home only in the valleys, afraid to look towards the peaks where you thought monsters or gods too great for your understanding lurked. But these monsters are merely distorted projections of your power, your capacity for assertiveness, for self-protection, for boldness, for determination. And these being gods are nothing other than your own unrevealed potential, charisma, creativity, unyielding will, deep compassion, the ability to lead. They do not belong to someone else. They await your recognition as your own. Reclaiming power from negative projections does not mean justifying vice, but purifying energy. If someone's brazenness irritates you, ask yourself, is this not a distorted echo of your suppressed ability to assert yourself, to set boundaries, to boldly ask for and take what is rightfully yours? If someone's pushiness infuriates you, perhaps within it lies your desire to break free from the shackles of excessive politeness and to act directly, without regard for others' opinions. Integrating the golden shadow is not about copying, but about claiming. If you admire someone's charisma, it's not because that person possesses something unattainable for you. It's because in them you see the blossoming of what already exists within you in nascent form. Charisma isn't an innate gift for the chosen few. It's manifested inner freedom, the courage to be oneself, and the ability to interact genuinely with the world. Creativity isn't a muse descending from the heavens, but rather an openness to new things, a willingness to take risks, and a play of imagination you might have once denied yourself. Here's a practical tool for working with the shadow. I propose a simple exercise, a kind of meditative exploration. Find a quiet place where you won't be disturbed. Close your eyes. Recall. Bring to mind a person or situation from your recent past that evoked an extremely strong, irrational emotion in you, either burning irritation, disgust, or conversely, deep, almost painful admiration. Don't analyze it immediately. Simply allow the image to emerge. 2. Identify the quality. Now, with utmost honesty, name one, the most striking quality that this person or situation displayed, which triggered your reaction. This could be impudence, indifference, narcissism, or freedom, talent, willpower. Write it down. 3. Try it on. Inhale deeply and exhale. Now, casting aside judgment and self-condemnation, ask yourself, in what way might this quality or its distorted/suppressed form be present within me? Where? When or in what situation might I have shown something similar but suppressed it? If it's impudence, perhaps it's your suppressed ability to assert yourself, ask for a raise, or refuse someone who violates your boundaries. If it's talent, perhaps it's your own unrealized creativity that you devalue or are afraid to express. Chapter 4. Reframe and reclaim. Imagine this quality is not a label, but pure energy. How could you use this energy constructively in your life for your own good and the good of others? How can impudence become by healthy assertiveness? How can narcissism become tough by healthy self-esteem? How can talent become creative expression? 5. A small step towards integration. Think of one small, completely safe action you could take within the next 24 hours to manifest this reframed energy. If it's assertiveness, perhaps it's a polite but firm refusal to a colleague. If it's creative expression, it could be 15 minutes of drawing, writing, or playing a musical instrument, something you haven't done in a long time. Take that step. Each such small step is a return of a piece of your sovereignty. This is not just an exercise. It's a ritual of gathering yourself back together bit by bit, fragment by fragment from what was scattered by the winds of judgment and fear. It's the beginning of your authentic self-realization, a path where you stop being a shadow of yourself and become a whole, multi-dimensional being. However, achieving wholeness is not an endpoint, it's merely a gateway to a new, deeper level of existence. The integrated parts of the shadow, these inner exiles that have returned home, begin to interact with other aspects of your psyche, forming new patterns and dynamics. This journey doesn't end with the first step. It simply gains a new dimension, revealing layers we haven't yet discovered.